Welcome back, Camden Catholic. So I'm sitting in the Newark airport right now, and it's probably the most depressing airport I've ever been into because I don't know if y'all can tell, but there's like no one here. And everyone's like dead silent. It's like kind of creeped me out a little bit. But anyway, so what I figured I would do is I would go ahead and start kind of this little intro video just so some of y'all actually know where I'm going, what's going on, why I'm vlogging, stuff like that. So first and foremost, I'm going to Hungary, right? My wife and I are going to Hungary, specifically the city of Budapest, right? So this is the Hungarian flag, pronounced Budapest by the locals, but we're not Hungarian, so it's not that big of a deal, right? So this is the Hungarian flag, and as you can see, Budapest nowadays is actually a very large, huge metropolis area, right? Very, very well-established city. A lot of the natural amenities that a lot of people like us would actually love to enjoy, and this is actually the Hungarian Parliament, which I'm going to visit hopefully tomorrow, but I'm not really sure yet. But it's actually the I'll get into it when I'm there, all right? But the other really cool thing about it is some of the cultural things that you're actually going to think is kind of neat. One is when I actually go to one of these bad boys, they have these geothermal hot spring bath and spas, which is actually insane. Super, super cool. I'm very excited about it. But before you can actually even really talk about Hungary, you got to know where the heck the place is, right? So let's talk about really quickly, where is it? Which y'all thinks you could actually point this bad boy out on this map right here? Anybody? No? Nobody wants to take a chip. Oh, very, very, very nice job, Jill Fitzpatrick. I heard you. It's right about there, right? So that's where Hungary is. It borders Austria, Czech Republic, and as well as Croatia as well. And as you can see, there's a river right there that splits the country in half, basically, and that's the Danube, all right? Danube. The Danube is like one of their most primary life sources. It's like an artery through the city, and actually it was really cool because it splits Budapest in half. All right, splits it into two districts. There's actually Buda on the western side and then Pest on the other. So speaking of it being split in half, is all the history stuff where it all starts coming in. It was actually split in half because the Romans were the official people to actually show up there first. It was literally the easternmost extent of the Roman Empire. So right around like 109 AD, the Romans began to show up. And they actually started bringing in large amounts of military, right? So all these Roman legionnaires were moving out there and things like that. And so there was a huge amount of Roman soldiers, and they began to build neighborhoods and homes, and it became like a little like city-state, right? So this is actually one of the really cool things. This is a Roman drawing of a Hungarian soldier on horseback firing a bow and arrow backwards, right? So, and as the city began to grow and grow and grow, it began to be more populous, and then it also looked attractive to other empires, right? Because we know that the Roman Empire fell when? Boom! Good job, Laura. Good job, Laura. That's right, 476 AD, right? Well, the thing is the Romans were gone by that point in this area of what was called by the Romans Anquium, right? Anquium. Now, it's this huge province, but these guys actually came in and took it over, called the Huns, right? Led by this guy named Attila, okay? So they're going to take this whole area over, and something you got to understand about Hungarian history really quick before we really get into it is the fact that their history is fraught with being taken over by somebody because the Magyars came in following these guys. That's spelled Magyars, and that's where the word Hungarian comes from. But really cool thing is, though, is their first king, right? So this is Saint Stephen, right, or Stephen the first king of Hungary, right? Actually crowned by like Pope Sylvester II and completely condemned by the Catholic Church. One of the really cool stories about him is he actually had his own uncle killed because his uncle tried to take the throne from him, and his uncle was actually a pagan, though, which is actually really interesting. But the thing about this whole deal is when they were actually trying to be taken over, he beat his uncle in a massive military campaign and then had his body cut up into 4 different parts and actually posted in 4 different strongholds all over Budapest, right? I wish I could find the pieces. But anyway, so this is actually the crown that he was bestowed upon by the Pope because he was a protector of the faith, because he actually converted Hungary to, that's right, Christianity, right? And that actually happened in about 1000 AD. So as you can see, this is kind of a crash course in Hungarian history. But that's Stephen I, that's his crown, and he's all over Hungary, right? We're actually going to the realm of the kings, which I'll show you. It's a very cool area. It's actually got an old, really old school statue of Stalin. Actually, it's his feet. That's all that's left over. Well, but let's keep going. So Hungarians are going to get a deathly blow about 200 years later when they get invaded by the Mongolians. The Mongolians around 1200 AD were ruining stuff for everybody. But Hungary is going to be almost completely destroyed, and over half of the Hungarian population was actually killed by the Mongolians. Like 50% of your people were actually killed by the Mongolians. So as you can tell, Hungary kind of just got crippled early on when it came to like military strength and dominance. But let's keep going. These people in this airport probably think I'm weird as all get out, but you know what? I don't care. But then following the invasion of the Mongolians, when the Mongolians actually didn't occupy this area and they killed half their population, then they got invaded by the Ottoman Turks, right? The same guys that actually destroyed Constantinople early on and actually created like the Ottoman Empire, right? So 150 years of war, and they got destroyed by the Ottoman. They were conquered by the Ottoman Turks, and they were actually controlled by the Turkish people. And one of the young ladies that we're going to visit is actually my brother-in-law's girlfriend, and she talks about how Turkish people still acknowledge the fact that they actually controlled Hungary for a while, and they say like insulting things about it, which I'll explain that to you later on. But yeah, so the Ottoman Turks actually took them over for quite some time, over 150 years worth of time. Then Hungary kind of had to sell out a little bit, and then begged and pleaded the wealthiest and most powerful and most influential family in Europe at the time to bail them out. And that's the Habsburg family, spelled Habsburg, right? So the Habsburg family comes in, and they start to actually take over control of Hungary, right? And they center themselves in Budapest, in their capital, where I'm going. And also, other funny thing about the Habsburgs is all of them were hooking up with their cousins and actually marrying their own family members, so they led to them being the ugliest family that Europe had ever seen. Look at these jaws. All right, now anyway, so let's keep on going though. And then in 1848, the Hungarians are going to have a small revolution against the Habsburg family. They're going to try and say, like, we want to be our own country again. We want to be our own country again. Get out of our business, Austrians. We don't even need you. Well, the thing about it is it wasn't successful because the Habsburgs had so much more money, but they met them in the middle, and they were like, how about this? We'll create a new empire, and we'll call it the Austro-Hungarian Empire, right? So the Hungarians are like, wait a minute. I think I can get down with this, right? We're going to have a family that's actually going to like give us mad amounts of money, and we're going to be so rolling in it financial-wise that we just got to let this one dude with a stupid face actually be in charge because they're such an ugly family. Whatever, we'll take it, right? So, and they decide to take it, and then they become a dual empire with two separate governments, one based in Budapest, which is where I'm going, and then one based back in Vienna in Austria, and then they actually had to just acknowledge the same monarch, right? So, very cool stuff. But unfortunately, even though they were riding high for about 50 years after 1848, and they're doing freaking awesome, so freaking good, and they're making so much money. But then World War I shows up. And the sad part about it is in World War I in 1914, they picked the wrong side, right? They joined up with the Austro-Hungarian Empire, joined up with Germany and several other groups, and they ended up losing World War I. And then after World War I, they actually went through a gigantic economic depression, and it was absolutely awful. And they had a whole restructuring period, and then also they were forced to break apart from Austria. So the Hungarian Empire became another little like snippet all by itself, and so the Hungarians were very weak, and they were really upset, and they were really poor. So then when World War II rolls around, they pick another really bad group to join up with. Ooh, a bad decision, Hungary, right? So they end up losing the Second World War as well when they join up with Nazi Germany and actually support the Axis powers, right? Well, as we know, the Nazis are going to end up losing World War II, right? So they're going to end up, and then what actually happens is, like a lot of y'all don't realize, is that after World War II, there was this massive division in Europe, and it kind of turned into like US and their allies, and then the Soviet Union and their allies, right? Well, the Soviet Union had a team, and it was called the Eastern Bloc, right? And so that means that all of those governments were communist, right? And this is happening in about 1948. And so actually, Soviet Union claimed Hungary for their own, right? Hungary was actually under communist rule all the way up until 1989 while I was alive, right? Like, so like Mr. Terror was born in 1988, so like when I was alive, Hungary was still communist. So like they went communist all the way up until the late 80s. But one of the coolest things about the communist rule was actually the fact that there was this massive student rebellion against communist rule in 1956. Hundreds and hundreds of students died, but they actually like stole these old Soviet tanks, and they ripped down the Stalin statue, and they stuck this gun in his face, and then they made this cool Hungarian flag where they cut the center of it out because they had burned him in the streets. And it's still considered one of their most influential moments in history, is the Hungarian student revolt of 1956. These massive buildings were destroyed, and they took all these tanks, but eventually, of course, it's communist Russia, so they're going to come in and they're going to crush this rebellion. But still, Hungary stood up for what it's about, and they stood up for their culture and their people and everything else. It's kind of an enduring principle about them, right? Very cool stuff. That's like a little bit of a crash course in Hungarian history, because right now, after 1989, they actually are a very well-off country. They are the 32nd highest from the top when it comes to GDP. So, and like with us being number one, that means they're right there close by. They also are 28th in quality of or 20th in quality of life. And with actually some Americans are considered 15th, right? So like amazing, massive shift, and it's a very legitimate country, and not a lot of people give it credit because it's just like kind of overlooked in a lot of ways. But That right there again is the modern Budapest, right? Buda over on the right side of the screen because it's actually flipped around the other side. Pest on the other. Nice little river that splits in between. Oh yeah, and when the Austro-Hungarian Empire came in, they actually united these two sides of the city and made one giant city with it. So the Danube actually comes right down there through the middle, and it's very well known for its fabulously gorgeous nightlife. And then also this is the Victory Circle that I'm going to see as well. That's got all of their greatest leaders immortalized in these huge statues, right? So just kind of a crash course in Hungarian history. Just kind of wanted y'all to get down with the system a little bit so y'all can like really see what I'm all about. And also because I was just really sad and depressed in this airport where no one's talking to each other, and figured why not, right? So soon we're going to be boarding the plane in about 15 minutes. So I'll record a little bit on the way. I'll see you guys in Zurich because that's where we're going first, in Zurich, Switzerland. So see you guys over there. Alright guys, we just landed here in Zurich, Switzerland. How long were we late over here, sweetheart?
Like 20 minutes.
We'll be here for about 20 minutes and then we're rolling out. So we'll be catching our plane to Budapest in a little bit and see you guys there. Alright guys, we made it finally, right? We only spent like 10 hours of travel time, but we landed in Budapest. Y'all actually probably just started the pep rally, like right when I landed, or Mass. You might still be in Mass actually. But where we're staying at, what we were passing by on the way here, we're in a sector, so we're on the Pest side of Budapest, right? And I'll throw a map up real quick so you can see it. We're on the Pest side because it's Buda and Pest, right? And so we're on the Pest side, which is on the right side of the Danube River, and we are actually in the neighborhood called Városliget, which in Hungarian means city park, because right down the street, actually, well, in the building I'm in, there's this really old school courtyard on the inside of this apartment complex I'm staying in with my brother-in-law and my wife, and it's very cool, very old school. I'm really interested to know how old this building is, but we actually are down the street from the main city park of Budapest, right? So, but today's travel stuff's going to kind of come to a close. We made it here. The first day is all about getting here, right? Tomorrow or maybe the next day, we'll kick up all like the cool history stuff and like take some pictures. And also my brother-in-law's got some crazy stuff planned, so we'll document it all along the way, all right? So thanks for coming along. See you guys later, all right?